Hello, this is a Chapter 4 Part B video, and we're looking specifically at the internal view of the Music Organizer version 5. You need to have a good solid understanding of how the application works, so you will need to look at a previous video which looks at the external view of Music Organizer version 5 to make sure you understand this video. That's the objects that will be in action. So you need to make sure that, again, there's a previous video which goes to all of this. Have a good look at that and understand that diagram completely before you can move on to looking at the internal view. So let's have a look at this. So in terms of our track view, remind ourselves that it takes two constructors. Let's have a look at the internal class. So three fields, all of private, so we cannot access them from outside of the class. We can only access them from internally here. We got two constructors, one constructor here and one constructor there. Now I'll do this constructor first. What we can do is we can give the track a file name and a file name only, and what that will do is it will set a file name but it will not set the other two parameters. So it's using the set details method here. So let's just have a look at that method. So that's an internal method call. So it's at the bottom here, the set details method. So what we're saying is when we set the details, we give that method a string artist, string title, and string file name parameters. The use of this keyword in this instance here refers to the object field called artist, and if we just use the artist word on its own, that refers to the local parameter here. So this.artist refers to the object artist field, which is this one, whereas artist on its own refers to the parameter there. So what we say is this.artist then equals the parameter, and so on and so forth. This.title, so the track.title equals the title passed by the parameter. Going back to the constructor, you'll see therefore that that works nicely, and that gives the artist and the title as unknown. If we want to create the whole, all of the details on a track, then we can use this first constructor here, which takes three parameters of artist, title, and file name, and then we can specify all those. So the bit that we specify in the constructor goes through these parameters here. Then the set details takes those parameters and passes it to the method here, which passes those details there, which eventually then pass those details to the fields themselves. That's the most complicated bit that the track class does. The rest of them are just we've got a getter here, mainly getters: get artist, get title, get file name, and then we can get the full details, which return a string concatenated value which includes all of the details of it. So here we've got our concatenation symbols and our fields there, which together will give you a full detail of the track. So that's all the details for track. That's how track works. Again, the track reader, I want you to abstract yourself away from. Just remember though, when you do create a track reader object, you can use this method. So it's got a return type of array list of track type, and it's called read tracks. And what that will do, if you give it a folder and a string suffix, that will return an array list of type track of all of the tracks within that folder. So let's reset it and have a look at our Music Organizer class. So our Music Organizer class contains three main fields: tracks of type array list of track, player of type music player, and reader of type track reader. Single constructor, and during this constructor most of the work happens. So what we do is we assign the three variables or the three fields and create those new fields in memory. using the top three commands there. The next thing we do is the read library. We use the read library method and we give it the audio string. If you can remember, the audio is the name of the folder. So what we've given there is we've given read library a parameter of the folder name which we wish to look into. So let's have a look at the read library method shown at the bottom here. So as we can see, we take one parameter of type string, which is going to be folder name. And then that will that's at the moment we've got that set to audio. The next line here creates a temporary array list of type track called temp tracks. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this temporary list here, and in order to create that, we've got a reader object, which, as you saw previously, is of type track reader. If you use the read tracks method, if you remember previously, we used the read tracks method, except we did it ourselves. So we right-clicked on the object, and when we created a new a new track reader object, we got that method there, put in our folder name and the .mp3 bit, and then that returned us an array list of type track of all the tracks in that folder. So this is exactly what we did previously. All we did was we got BlueJ and we could actually see it, but what this does is it was create a temporary variable of those tracks, and the temporary variable is called temp tracks. Once we've now got this, now we can add these tracks to our array list of type track for this particular object, which in our case is called tracks. So what we do then is we just use a simple for each loop where we have our temporary variable of type track, which we're going to call track. You specify the differences with a capital and a lowercase. And then we're going to go through, and the collection we're going to use is the temp tracks collection. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of those tracks there, and then the main bit here is we then use the method add track, which you saw previously, that the method takes a parameter of type track. For a reminder, let's have a look at that bit. Add track takes a parameter of type track, and then it does, which, and you've seen this before, is it uses the tracks.add. So if you remember, the tracks object is of type, the tracks object is of type array list, and the array list have got the method add, which you have used previously. So we add to the array list our specific track, which in this case is taken from this temp tracks collection. So as we go through this, it will add all of the tracks from the temp tracks into our actual tracks array list. So that's what that method does. The next method then, or the next line here, this is system.out. So this gives us our message which says that these certain tracks have been added. In terms of getting the actual number of files which have been added, then it uses the getNumber of tracks method, which you've called and used plenty of times before, which is here. And that simply just returns the tracks.size. Finally, we do a system.out.println, which is effectively just gives us a carriage return, so just neatens it up a little bit in our terminal window. So that's how the music organizer works. Let's see if there's anything else which we haven't looked at here. The add file and add track considered. The play track we have looked at previously. We've looked at that one previously, and we've looked at the get number of tracks as well. The list tracks, given a specific index. The list all tracks we've seen as well, where we go through it all. The list by artist, this one here is uses a for each loop. Again, this will go through the whole collection, because what it will do is it will list all the tracks by a given artist. So you want to go through that all of that collection, rather than just doing a simple search where you would maybe use a while loop. Remove track is fairly straightforward. play first. So what we're doing is we're literally just playing the first one, which is shown by this one here. Player.startPlaying, remember players are a music player type, and then the start playing is the method within that. We then get the file name from tracks, which is our array list, .get, and then we will get our first element in the list, which is of 0, which is going to be our first one, and then from that we then have a further method call which will then get the file name. So that's how we start playing that track. So there's 3 things sort of going on in that particular one there. The stop player one you've seen before, and we've got a little private method in here which will then test to see if an index is valid, so we don't need to do error checking for each method. Okay, hopefully that's covered. For further detail we will cover those in the lesson. See you then.